administration, as well as all of the teachers, students, faculty, family, and friends gathered here today. And of course, thank you and congratulations to my fellow graduates on this stage. We made it. When I was in elementary school, I wanted to grow up to be Sharpay Evans. For those of you who didn't have a child in elementary or middle school between 2006 and 2008, Sharpay is Ashley Tisdale's character from Disney's High School Musical saga. As a young girl with few friends and big dreams, it's no surprise that I aspired to be like Sharpay. Bold, popular, pretty, and, in her own words, absolutely fabulous. She spent her winters as the lead in the school musical, and her summers cruising down to her family's country club in a pink convertible. And her time in high school, well, that was all friends, flirting, and fun musical numbers. As I would soon discover, high school is not all friends, flirting, and fun musical numbers. We never had to watch Troy Bolton and his group of attractive, talented friends take AP exams, study for SATs, or pull an all-nighter to finish a masterpiece project due the next day. Troy's biggest concern was seemingly whether to pursue basketball or music. He was just too talented at both to decide. One evening a few weeks ago, I rewatched the first High School Musical in my friend's basement. At the time, I was in the midst of writing this speech, and I wanted to remember the magical, perfect reality created in the movie. Upon viewing, I started to notice aspects of the movie that I had overlooked as a child. Between show-stopping musical numbers and energetic dances, the characters actually experienced the trials and tribulations of real high school, to some degree. Gabriella struggled with fitting in a new environment. Troy battled his desire to pursue a new passion with the rigid expectations of his friends and family. Even the ever-fabulous Sharpay grappled with the realization that she would have to learn to share the spotlight. But through their individual struggles, they were all in it together, and eventually they came out stronger than before. I started to wonder if I had too harshly misjudged my own high school experience. In my mind, the lines began to blur between the high-pressure classrooms I had lived in for 4 years and the whimsical world of my favorite childhood movie. To the class of 2017, I ask you now to think back on the past 4 years. Don't just nod at me, really think for a second. Think about moments surrounded by friends and family, moments of victory, moments when small things made you smile, moments when maybe you almost felt like breaking out into song. You may find that high school was actually a lot more like our favorite Disney movie trilogy than you had realized. Here's how I lived my high school musical, one moment at a time. I'm sure none of you have ever even thought to call me an athlete, but I had my Troy Bolton moment once, back in 9th grade. Okay, I wasn't the star player on the basketball team. Actually, I was never on any sports teams during my high school career. But as a freshman, I decided to sign up for extreme gym. Unlike the gym classes I took for my remaining 3 years of school, extreme gym actually involved playing real sports. I was one of 3 girls in my class, the other 2 of whom were upperclassmen, and neither of whom ever exchanged more than 3 words with me. In a class full of testosterone, I struggled to hold my own on the field, especially once we entered our football unit. One weekend, I decided to do what any Roslyn overachiever would, practice at home so I could seem more impressive in class. I asked my dad if we could have a catch of the football outside for an hour or so, and he seemed excited, if not rightfully confused by my sudden athletic interest. It took a few demonstrations and some practice, but eventually I managed to catch the ball without dropping it or hurting myself. I didn't have a choreographed sports team dance number, but I could feel myself getting my head in the game. I marched proudly into gym that Monday, ready to take on the world, and listen to my teacher announce that we would be starting the first day of a new unit. So, I never ended up becoming a star athlete. But the moment that I first caught a football in my front yard, my dad let out a whooping cheer, the sun warmed the rubber ball in my hands, and I felt like I had just finished performing a show-stopping musical number. Now that we've established that I'm not really a sports person, let me tell you about something I really enjoy: writing. I've been a member of Student Prince for all 4 years of my high school experience. If you're not a club member, chances are you've never heard of Student Prince, the Roslyn High School literary magazine that you all receive with your cap and gown. Essentially, our club receives submissions of poetry or short prose each week, and we spend our meetings reading and discussing each submission. At the end of the year, we work diligently in a computer lab every day for about 2 weeks to produce a final product that only a few students will ever even look at. This small club of ragtag poets is my favorite student organization to which I belong. Even if our work doesn't end up reaching many people, we're still proud to put it out for the public each year. But I'm not telling you this to sell you Student Prince. I just want to tell you about a single moment, one that didn't even occur during one of our club meetings. A large stack of copies of Student Prince sat at the front of my English classroom for the first few months of school. During the break between 2 periods my classmates and I shared in that same room, I heard an enthused voice exclaim, "Dude, this is sick, come look." I glanced up from my iPad, not expecting to see anything remarkable. I was instead struck with the image of 2 of my classmates examining a copy of the literary magazine. "Dude, you have to read this poem," my classmate continued. "These images are so freaking vivid, it's crazy." I watched in awe as my peers flipped through the collection of poems featured in last year's magazine and marveled at each one. That was the most proud I've ever felt of my club's work. Without knowing it, we had reached an audience we never expected, and I felt like singing. And of course, the moments that colored my high school experience most brightly were those I shared with my closest friends. In the high school musical song, What I've Been Looking For, Sharpay and Ryan, or Troy and Gabriella if you prefer their version, sing to each other, "I've never had someone as good for me as you." Every memory I have with friends from high school is one where we pushed each other to become better people. I have grown and developed with the help of every classmate with whom I've shared these halls, whether we've exchanged our deepest fears or simply an extra sheet of loose leaf. Vicky, Felicia, Holly, Yetta, and Chloe, you were always my wildcats. Our group formed in 10th grade because we all had chemistry. I don't mean that in the cheesy sense. We were all in Miss Papagni's Chem Honors class. Somewhere in between reference table quizzes, Jimmy Neutron episodes, and absolutely fabulous pasta, we bonded together into a compound greater than the sum of our elements. And yes, that was a chemistry pun. Last year, after my friends and I finished our last final exam, we headed somewhere special to celebrate our newfound status as seniors. Stop and Shop. We roamed the aisles in search of supplies to bake a few hundred cupcakes just for ourselves. We were teetering on the brink of childhood and adulthood. There we were, grocery shopping at 2 in the afternoon, but then the silence of the baking supplies aisle was interrupted by Holly's cheers as Felicia launched her across the tiled floor as a passenger in our shopping cart. Later that night, we settled into Holly's basement, the same basement where, just a few weeks ago, I sat and rewatched High School Musical. That night, though, we were catching up on episodes of Numbers and binging on Fantastic Cupcakes. It seemed like nothing earth-shattering, just 6 newly minted high school seniors crammed onto 2 couches in a dark basement to watch a TV show about math. But right then, I knew I had finally found what I'd been looking for. But these are my moments. This is the story of my high school musical. Everyone has their own plot, their own cast, their own soundtrack. To the Roslyn High School class of 2017, my classmates, my friends, what was your story? Hopefully, it's one that you'll want to watch over and over again, even as you move into this new phase of your life. Hopefully, you'll find yourself humming some of the tunes from the soundtrack that defined your 4 years here. Hopefully, you'll get to pass on some of those tales to the new people in your life, your new wildcats or bulldogs. I need to thank the 3 most important people in my life. Dan, I'm sorry I made you late for school most days. Thank you for putting up with my inability to wake up to an alarm and for flipping through radio stations while I drive to find one playing actual music. Dad, I'm sorry we have to spend the rest of our lives rooting against each other in college basketball games. Thank you for teaching me so much of what I know, from math to how to fry an egg, for parallel parking with me about 100 times before my road test, and for always asking for a hug goodnight. Mom, I know you really wanted to read this speech before today, but I wouldn't let you. I hope this was worth the wait. Thank you for being my role model, for always reading through my papers, for teaching me that it's okay to cry sometimes, and for always standing by me, no matter what. The future is unknown, but I have faith that each and every one of us will jump forward and embrace the change that's just around the corner. I could end with a quote from any of the iconic closing numbers from the High School Musical saga, but this moment right now isn't the finale. We are all Troy and Gabriella at the very beginning, standing on a stage in front of a crowd and scared to sing. Class of 2017, I know that something has changed, never felt this way, and right here tonight, this could be the start of something new. Thank you. Correct.